Hey, hey. Thank you for those who are hopping on. I'm just going to wait a few more moments and get started on today's topic. First off, a few housekeeping. I wanted to thank those who have been so generous to support me on Cash App. I see you. I appreciate you. If you like this show, if you want to see more content from me, you can find me on Cash App and Venmo. I really appreciate your support. Also appreciate those who have been out in the comment section sending me their feedback. All of you guys, I appreciate you for being here. Hey there. Good evening. Um, These are the type of hairstyles that look good on black women. Sorry to compare. That's hilarious. um, yeah. So again, I want to thank those of you who have joined on. If you just hopped on, please subscribe, tag anyone on this live that you may think may find it interesting. And we're going to be talking about comparison. Some of the things that I've noticed, just some of my thoughts about it. And yeah, so I'm just going to wait a few more moments and then get into today's topic. Okay. All right. Well, just to get started, I've been thinking on this actually for a while. Just comparison and how I feel, especially in the era of Instagram and the era of social media, how it's a lot more tempting to just compare ourselves. And I found in my experience that I think this is something that women struggle with a little bit more than men. Not to say that men don't have that issue sometimes too, but I think especially us women, I think we're oftentimes just tempted to compare how our life is doing, compare our relationships, compare how things look, and especially when it comes to social media. So often people look at that, whether or not they even really know it. And sometimes it could be subconscious, but so often they can go on social media or digital marketing and compare their lives to something they see on the screen, and that can lead to a lot of discontentment. It can lead to a lot of unhappiness. And again, I think sometimes it's things that people are doing subconsciously. They're not even fully aware that they're using what they see on the screen as their metric, or something their friend posted or a distant classmate posted as a metric to determine how their life is going. But it is something that's very real, and it's something that leads to a lot of discontentment. And I remember it was a few years ago, but I think it's still relevant that one of the reasons Instagram decided to change its platform and thought about hiding likes and things like that is because it started to notice that people who were on social media a lot more, women who were on Instagram a lot more in particular, they found that they were a lot more discontent, that they would go on the platform and they would get off and feel bad about themselves. They'd feel like, man, wow, this person over here, they just bought a house, or that person over there is getting married. Okay, that person just got engaged, that person got a promotion, and you go on and you see the best of the best things, and a lot of people were getting off feeling bad about that. Um, and so I think I think there's a lot to be said about that. I think there's a lot to be said about that. And the reason I want to address women specifically is because I think just it's our nature, it's a woman's nature to be a lot more communitarian, to really like to go with the flow, to kind of go with the crowd. To like to know what your friends are doing, to like to know what your girlfriends are doing, and what your sisters or whatever, like to want to have that community sense of approval. I can say this personally, just as a woman, and just being around other women, I know that there is an aspect of many of us where we like to, how do I put it, um we like to follow one another for better or for worse. I don't really know how else to put it. um and a part of this is, I feel like sometimes women can fall more susceptible to comparison because of our I think our nature to be so community based, and to be very much driven by relationships, very much driven by our connection to other women. And I think, that's one of the things I love about being a woman. I love having community. I love having friends and girlfriends that I can talk to and we can share, and, we can have conversations and rely each other emotionally. But I also know that sometimes that can also lead to unhealthy, that can lead to create unhealthy scenarios when it comes to, okay, you no longer have a strong sense of self and you're looking to another person or to another woman or what other women are doing in order to determine how you should be. And I think this is the case for many of us. When it comes to, for example, we can look at beauty trends, for example. And for example, let's talk about weaves, right? Time and time and time and time again, that is a topic of discussion that I see within the Black community. You know, women over here talking about, oh, why they need to wear their weaves, why they need to wear long straight hair from Malaysia or from India instead of wearing the hair in their head. And oftentimes you hear, oh, it's because it's what men want, or it's because, this is the only way men are gonna like me. These are popular narratives that I heard. But when you actually talk to the men, they're just like, no, I actually prefer your hair natural. What are you talking about? And the reality is, one of the main reasons I feel like us women, we like to wear weaves or we like to wear hair pieces, is because other women like to do it. How many of us, I can speak from experience, like when I was, when I got a lace front, and I had friends like, oh girl, look at you, look at this, look at that. And it's like there's like encouragement from your community. It's like, oh, look at what you're doing. And that feels good. It feels good, like when you have your friends who are telling you, oh, you look good doing this, like you want to do more of it. And so I think that communitarian mindset, it can drive us, I think, to do things, again, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But like I said, if you don't have a strong sense of self, that can lead to examples. And I think the fact that there is a $1 million, not $1 billion industry based upon fake hair, where you have men who are saying, we don't like this as a beauty trend. You have plenty of men who are saying, we don't like this. And yet women still continue to do it. At that point, we know it's because it's something women want to do. It's not because they're trying to appease men or anything like that. It's because it's something that they want to do. So I think that's just one example of the way that, women, we encourage one another into certain behavior for better or for worse. Now when it comes to comparison, and when it comes to judging our lives based upon another person, this is where I really feel we as women can fall short, and we as women sometimes can fall prey, or we can fall victim. um because you're never ever going to be like anyone else. I've heard all women are tens. I don't believe that. Not every woman is meant to be a 10. Not every woman is meant to be a supermodel. Not every woman is meant to be a an actress or a superstar, or to be married to an NFL player, or to be, not every woman's meant to be rich. And it's like, that is okay. That is okay. But I think there is a big problem that exists in the society, to where there is a big group of us, many of us, who strive to be a particular image, or strive to live a particular way that is not meant for very many people. Like, for example, okay, let's say if I go on Instagram right now and I follow an Instagram model and I look at her and I'm like, oh wow, she has 2 million followers, or wow, look at her outfit, or look at her body, and I start comparing myself to how she looks, it's like, I'm never gonna be her. And unless I want to go and maybe do plastic surgery, or maybe go on a crash diet, or do some of the different things that she has to do to look that way, I'm never actually gonna look that way, and that is okay. But it is very, 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 very common. It is very common for us as women to go on social media, to go on Instagram, to go on these different platforms and say they were interacting with people, or just say they were having fun, but to really use it as a metric for how we're doing. And I think, this is one of the reasons. Something simple as, like, you know posting wedding photos, or posting the newest outfit, or posting different vacations, or some of the different things that we do. Even those things can start to become areas where we compare our life, and we look to say, oh well, she went on that vacation, okay, that means I need to go on a vacation. Or wow, she had that ring, now my ring needs to be bigger. Or just, again, sometimes these things are subconscious, but it's a very, very real thing. And like I said, if it wasn't real, Instagram would not ever release a report that says, hey, we're seeing that there is a usage of depression that is linked to usage on social media. They wouldn't release the report on that. And there wouldn't be such a push between Facebook and Instagram and some of these different social media platforms to try to find ways to make sure that people on social media are doing psychologically okay. Because they started to find that people were going online and they were like starting to feel not good about themselves. And so let me see. Sorry, I'm getting some comments in. Yeah, and so like you said, social media is merely carefully curated lifestyle posing as reality. And see, here's the thing about it. I think this is just my personal opinion. I don't have any sociological studies on this, but my personal opinion is that I think men, for the most part, are don't fall as prey or are not as susceptible to the comparison because men generally know early on where they rank in society. The world doesn't lie to them. They don't really put things for them on a silver platter. Like men know early on, like unless you're taking care of yourself, ain't nobody else gonna take care of you. Like there's not a lot of wiggle room, if any, for men. Also, you know, a lot of marketing. Again, I say this. I worked agencies. I worked in marketing for years. A lot of marketing is actually geared towards women. Most multi-million dollar companies, they create ads and it is talking to women because women are the biggest consumers. And so I think for that reason alone, men are generally, not to say there aren't men out there who struggle in some ways, but men are generally, I think, free, or they know when they look on social media or they look in the media, they know this is a false reality, this is a false narrative. But women, like I said, we're not always we're not always as privy to that. We're not always as privy to that. Um, so yeah, like you said, I think sometimes we can go on social media and we can see what a person is wearing or where a person is going, and that can make us want to compare ourselves. It can make us want to compare our outfits. It can make us want to compare our hair. Or maybe we got to do that latest hairstyle. Maybe we got to do that latest makeup trick. Or maybe, okay, they went to that vacation. Maybe I should go to that vacation. Oh wow, like look, they're taking selfies and they seem like they have a great relationship. I should have a great relationship. See, and the problem with social media is that it is a false narrative. It is a false narrative. Instagram is a false narrative. Think about it. Literally, the whole premise behind Instagram is that they limit the amount of pictures you can post in any given post. You have to pick, I think, maximum of 5. But really, you are forced to pick the one picture, the one image or video that basically gives you the best snapshot of what's going on. So of course, most people's Instagram feed, most people's social media feed, it's the best that they have to offer. It is the highlight of their day. It is the highlight of their life. Very few people are going on there posting about the argument that they had, posting about when they got laid off, posting about the eviction notice that they got, posting about the fact that they're going through divorce or that they're on antidepressants. People aren't talking about that because that's not fun and that's not sexy. But on social media, like I said, what people are talking about is the best of the best. And so it is incredibly dangerous to ever go on social media and look at anyone. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're a movie star or a celebrity, off of the Real Housewives of whatever, off of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. Like it, I don't care who they are. It is incredibly dangerous to go on there and to even be tempted to compare your life to that which is false, because like I said, we're only seeing one side of the picture. We're seeing the narrative that that particular person, that curator, that influencer wants us to see, but we're not seeing the behind the scenes. We're not seeing what really goes on. For example, just one for example, I know people in the fitness industry, or who are trainers or experts or whatever, who what they will do is they may go on a crash diet for a few weeks or however long to get fit, right? Or to get a certain look. Then they go and do a photo shoot. You do a photo shoot, you do a whole bunch of different photos. That photo shoot may last you 6, 7 months. And then now for the next 6 and 7 months, you're posting all these photos looking trim and cut, looking like, oh, you live your lifestyle like that. But in the reality, all you did was go on a crash diet. You got results that are only going to last you for a few days. And you're pushing this idea of like, hey, my body looks like this every single day. My body looks this cut or this lean every single day. And when in reality, in your day to day, you may have a little bit of a belly, or you may have a little bit of cellulite, or whatever it may be. Um, But because you wanted a crash diet and you created this whole narrative of like, oh, my life looks like this all the time, nobody knows. People getting tummy tucks and different things like that and saying, oh wow, you can get six-pack abs like me in less than a month, not knowing that they got a tummy tuck in the meantime to kind of help. And these are I'm not saying this is what every fitness trainer or person, person is doing. Like, I know people in the fitness industry who are very, who are very serious and are all natural, but I use that as one of many examples to say that much of it is a show. Much of social media is a show, and we should know that. And while and while in theory, you would hope that people would not take things at face value, I think so often we do. And I think if you see women, especially when we see likes, when we see shares, if we see the romance, we're like, oh, that's so cute, a cute picture, a nice outfit, smiles, and it can be really, really attractive. But very often do we know the story behind closed doors. And the reason that that is so destructive is that, again, when you are how do you put it? Like, when you are tempted to compare your life to that which is false, to compare your life to a false narrative, it never will lead to happiness. It'll never will lead to contentment. And I think this is one of many reasons that a lot of modern women are not happy or on antidepressants or on, some form of mental some form of mental health. I actually want to do numbers on that. I wanted to do numbers. I heard it was a pretty high number of modern women today who are specifically on antidepressants. But I'm going to do research before I actually spout that number. um, yeah, so you said this is why BBLs are so popular. It's not. Yeah, and like I said, a lot of people go with the crowd. A lot of people, it's just following the crowd, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually following that, which is good. So, this is where I would say, and first of all, thank you for those of you who have hopped on. Thank you. Please get the likes up. Tag anyone on here that you think might find this beneficial. Thank you, Tiffany Taylor. I thank you. I appreciate the nice comment. And we're just talking about comparison and why I personally feel as if it is harder for women, or women sometimes we can be a little bit more susceptible to comparing ourselves. And one of the reasons I think it is very dangerous for us to compare ourselves to social media, to what we see on Instagram, because it is just not real. Oftentimes it's not real. So I can say in my personal journey, let me see, I could say in my personal journey, and I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that this is something that I don't have to catch myself doing. I do have to catch myself being like, oh wait, like, I'm not going to compare myself to that couple, or not compare myself to the situation I don't know about because I don't know the full details. And it is tempting. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that, but I think one of the ways that I feel that I'm learning to overcome this and learning to recognize that, like, hey, that is a lie, that is not a bad idea, is for me, this goes back to having a strong sense of self, having a strong sense of your identity, having a strong sense of who you are. So, many of you guys, again, know that I am a Christ follower. My relationship with God is foundational to me, and one of the reasons relationship with God to me is so important is because it helps me establish a firm foundation in who I actually am. I know many women who follow me, who I know claim to be Christian, spiritual, or whatever. So if you are that, if you would say, "Hey, I believe in God, I'm a Christian Christ follower," or whatever, and you are a woman, I would say, especially for you, comparison is one of the most damaging things out there. And the reason being is because we're all, I believe we are all made in God's image, every last one of us. Everyone has a unique aspect of them that when they're walking in their fullness, when they're walking in their identity, it is literally a reflection of God himself. It is a beautiful, powerful emanation or representation of God. And so if you as a person are so busy comparing who you are to someone else, or if you as a person are dissatisfied with how God made you, or you're dissatisfied with your natural abilities, and you are preferring to be someone else, or you're wishing that you were somewhere else, or you're wishing that you were in someone else's shoes, what you're in essence is doing is you are limiting your full capabilities. You are basically limiting the opportunity that you have to live out your fullness and to express the fullness of who you are to the world, to express your talents and your passions or your dreams or whatever that may be. And like I said, I think part of it is actually recognizing, okay, our real identity, or us recognizing what it is that we actually are, who we are, what we're good at, what we're here for. I think a part of that is actually going back and saying, hey, I don't have to be like everyone else. I don't have to be a 10 and that is okay. Like I said before, I don't have to be a supermodel and that is okay. Because, again, I hear this narrative out there that I think is actually damaging. And it says to women, oh, all women are 10s, which is this 10s, right? Which is to say that all women should be on the cover of, I don't know, a magazine, or all women should be walking down in a runway. And I'm like, no, that's actually not the case. Not every woman needs to be walking down the runway. Not everyone needs to be on a multi-million modeling campaign. And that is okay. That doesn't mean that a person doesn't have value if they're not a model, or it doesn't mean a person doesn't have value if they're not, on a magazine cover every single day. But it is, I think, extremely unrealistic to tell a woman that she is something that she's not. And I think a lot of us, we live in a generation right now where people are really scared to tell the truth. They're scared to call a spade and say, hey, you're actually not really good at that. Or, hey, no, you're not. Like, that's may not be the truth. And that's okay. But I think sometimes because there's, I think we've almost come to the point where women have been coddled almost to the point to where there's not there, how do I put it? Like, we're being so coddled so much that sometimes now having any standard, or saying, hey, I'm this, but I'm not that, is considered like disrespectful, or is considered bad. And again, the damaging thing about that is that means, there's women who grow out there trying to figure out, well, what am I actually good at? Who am I? Because if you're told wherever you go, oh, you're this and you're that and you're that and you're that, but your experience doesn't reflect that, it can be really confusing. And this is actually why, I can look at Kevin Samuels and I can appreciate his show, because, he's having those conversations with women and he's saying, okay, you're wanting this result and you're saying that you're this, but your reality is showing you this. And it can come off as harsh sometimes, it can come off as a little bit mean or cruel. But I think what he's doing is just kind of, giving him a little bit of dose of reality. And he said it all the time. It's like, why is it a bad thing for somebody to be average, or why is it a bad thing for someone to just have maybe average looks, or to have an average money, or to have, why is that a bad thing? There's nothing wrong with that. But because we've created this culture, I think especially around women, where it says, oh, you have to be pins, or you have to look like this, or you have to be that. It's almost as if you're not projecting that lifestyle, or if you're not going after that lifestyle, if you're not appearing like you have that lifestyle, then it's as if you have no value. And that strictly is just not true. And so, I say for women, I think one of the main ways to guard against comparing yourselves to a false reality is to first have a strong sense of who you are in God, who you are in Christ, who God actually created you to be. And that's a personal thing. No one can tell you that. I mean, of course, it helps to have a community. It helps to have a strong faith community to kind of figure out some of those questions. But I think essentially having a strong sense of self, I think that is one of the best ways to guard against the comparison. Because, like I said, there's never going to be another you. There's never going to be another Sade. There's never going to be another, whoever you are. There will never be another version of you. And I think that's the beautiful thing about each and every person having their own unique fingerprint, or, each and every person having their own story, is that, yeah, maybe not everyone's called to be a multimillionaire or a billionaire or whatever, but that particular person has value, and that they have things that they can share to the world, that if they actually embrace their lot in life, if they embrace their gifts, how they actually are, and make that work for them, then it's like, I think they're happier and the world's a better place. But if we compare ourselves to what we will never, to what we'll never be, like if I was to compare myself to something I would never be, I would spend my whole life being discontent, and I would never focus on what I do have and make the most of that. And I think that is a damaging thing. And I actually think there's a lot of people who do that. They're so focused on what they aren't and what they can't be that it hinders their ability to actually, take the gifts of what they have, take the opportunities that they do have, and make it work for them. And that creates a lot of discontentment. There's something beautifully just satisfying about working in something or doing something and being like, this is what I was called, this is what I was meant to do, this is what I was made to do. There's something very satisfying about that. But then the flip side, there's something very unsatisfying about you spending your whole life working and try to fit a mold, or working and try to act a certain way or fit into a certain idea, and feeling like no matter what I do, this just doesn't fit me. That's also on the flip side can be very unhappy. So thank you for those of you who have joined on. Please get the likes up, tag anyone on this that you may think may find this interesting or beneficial. And we're talking about comparison and why I think comparison is bad, especially for women, and just some of the ways I think we as women can guard against it. So I would say, let me see. Sorry, I'm getting some comments in. Like I said, tag anyone on that they think may find this interesting. Thank you also for those of you who have been so generous to support me on Cash App, or just on this channel. Again, I want to bring more content like this to you. I want to have more discussions like this, but I will need your help and I'm going to need your support long term in order to be able to keep this up. So if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, please feel free to show some love on the super chat or also on Cash App. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sharday. But also, so to continue the conversation again, I think for women, one of the main reasons to guard against comparing yourself is to have a strong sense of your self worth and who you are and what you're good at, and to know that, okay, if you're not on the cover of this magazine, or if you're not married to a multi-billionaire, or if you're not whatever it is that you find yourself tempted to compare yourself with, it does not mean that you don't have value, and it doesn't mean that you don't have a purpose. But I think we also have to know our limitations. I think the first part of actually finding contentment and finding happiness with how we're made and who we are is actually being able to know our boundaries. So this is what I'll say for me, as a Christ follower, that is one of the reasons I think for me, I decided that I wanted to follow God, that I wanted to become a Christian, is because when God revealed himself to me, it was like, okay, this is an aspect of my identity that had been lost, that is now found, that I am now recognizing. And recognizing the divinity within, recognizing God's power within me, and being able to see, okay, the different ways he wants to express himself through who I am. To me, there's nothing greater than that. There's nothing greater than that. And it's really hard to explain. I know some people are going to be like, you sound crazy, which is totally fine. But like I said, I think having a strong sense of a God identity is crucial and key to actually being able to guard against the lies of comparison. Because like I said, there's always different messages out there telling us, hey, you need to look this way. Hey, you need to be this way. Hey, you got to have this new hairstyle. Hey, you got to have this new makeup trick. Hey, you got to try this. There's always going to be a new trend. There's always going to be something out there telling you you're not going to be happy unless you do this. You're not going to be satisfied unless you try this. You're not going to be content unless you buy this. That message is always going to be out there. And those messages go especially to women. Not to say men don't also have talent, not to say men also don't have those have some of those issues, but it does happen. And I think another thing that I want to touch upon is self-hatred. Another reason that I feel it is incredibly important to have a true sense of who you are, who God created you to be, is because there's a lot of self-hatred out there. There is a lot of self-hatred, and I have been saddened to see the amount of self-hatred that to this day continues and persists within the Black community. And I think this happens in all communities, but I'm gonna talk to the Black community because that's who's listening. And I notice this time and time again. From the hypocrisy I see of, in one moment, a woman complaining about colorism, but wearing a long weave that she from India, and wear blue contacts, to to the pressure that some people feel to put on makeup that makes them look lighter, to just sometimes a one-sided lust and the hating within the community. I mean, just all these different, I think all this different the negative narrative that we hear time and time and time and time again, that whether or not we know, can create this subconscious idea that says, I'm not good enough. And I'm better when I associate with this people group, or I'm better when I act like this, or I'm better when I go here. And that's a very damaging thing. And I can say this, I even notice this within women that call themselves Christians, or call themselves Christ followers, or whatever, or call themselves spiritual, and they associate godliness with a particular culture. They associate godliness with a white culture, or godliness with only listening to a certain style of music, or only wearing a certain style of dress, or rejecting their own culture. And you know not to just get on a tangent, but I think at the end of the day, anything that is causing you to say, I hate myself, and I hate the way God made me, I hate the way I look, hate the way I was made, whatever that may be, that's a problem. And I think so often comparing ourselves creates that cognitive dissonance. When we look in the mirror, we look at the mirror and we see our reality, and then we look at what we think should be our reality, and we don't measure up. That creates a lot of discontent. And there's this scripture that talks about being content with a lot in your life, accepting your place, accepting you know whatever destiny that is meant for you. And I think there's something incredibly beautiful about saying, okay, this is how I'm created. This is who I am. Some of us, it seems like we can have an upper hand. Some of us, it seems like we can have a lower hand. But the thing about it is, we recognize that every single person is made in the image of God, and has a capacity for a purpose, or has a capacity to live out a destiny that literally reflects God's nature. There is nothing demeaning about that. There's absolutely nothing demeaning about that. But if we look to fashion our lives, and if we look to compare our lives to something that we literally see on a screen, or false image that created curated by some Hollywood producers, or we compare our lives to the Real Housewives of fill in the blank. It's just, you're never going to be happy. And here's the thing about it too, which is crazy. Some of the very people that we look up to, or some of the very people that women we are tempted to compare our lives with, those women are miserable. I read an article not too long ago where it was talking about supermodels and anxiety and depression, and it was looking at supermodels and different mental issues that they have, and the different ways that they struggle. And one was talking about how she had performance anxiety, and how before she would go on the stage, sometimes she would literally have panic attacks, and she had to have different counseling and different medicine that she was on in order to be able to do some of her shows. This is a supermodel. This is a person who's arguably, a woman could look at and be like, oh man, I wish I had her life. She's flying all around and getting paid for how she looks. She's going to all these beautiful destinations. She has access to all the top this and that. Like, who wouldn't want to be a supermodel? And she's literally talking about how she struggles with depression. So um I really think, again to just compare ourselves, our lives, to what we see on the screen, without knowing the full details, without even knowing the full story, and without recognizing the fact that very many times we're seeing a false narrative, that's incredibly, incredibly, incredibly dangerous. So thank you for those of you who have just hopped on, who have joined. If you like this, please like, subscribe, tag anyone on this, or share this with anyone that you think may find this actually valuable. We're talking about comparison, and how tempting it is for some women to compare, especially, but how damaging it can be. Okay, so looks like, thank you, grow for broke, for your super chat. Let's see, you said how to manage unmet intimate expectations. Okay, are you talking about? I'm trying to understand. Are you talking about um like women in relationships, or single women who long to be in like a relationship? I guess I'm trying to, I'm wanting to understand more of your question. Um, but anyways, and also thank you. Looks like I appreciate it. So let me see. Yeah. Thank you, Eric Moore, for the Cash App. Again, if you like this content, if you like what you're seeing, again, you can support me on Cash App and Venmo Sade. Okay, how to manage unmet expectations for relationships. Somewhat related to comparing to other people's social media. I think that is a great question. So you bring up a really, really big point. You bring up a really big point. I hear I'll say this. I'll say this. I hear or see a lot of relationship experts or gurus or whatever giving advice about relationships to women in particular that I think is incredibly toxic and I think is incredibly damaging. Not to say that there aren't people out there who are actually doing good things, but the very fact that we have an entire movement centered around hypergamy, leveling up, whatever that means, um, I think is just one indication of how damaged people are. I'll say this much. In theory, what should happen is that a person should learn at home through their family, through their relationships, through their seeing their mother or their father or not, whatever. They should learn. Okay, what does it actually mean to have a good and healthy and functional relationship? That is where we should learn what expectation exists. You should get that from your mother. You should get that from your father. Unfortunately, many of us, we don't necessarily come from healthy backgrounds, healthy homes, two-parent backgrounds. So some of us are less to struggle around and come to our own conclusions. I think what's going on right now, which is incredibly and damaging, is this notion that a woman, unless she ends up with a man that is making a certain amount of money or is making exceptionally more money than her, then she shouldn't settle. I think that is one of the most damaging and one of the most toxic things out there. And actually I have another video dedicated to this. But I think that's one of the most damaging things out there. And the reason being is that is to assume that just because somebody has money that they are good relationship material. Now, what I'm not saying is that a woman should just go out there and go find a homeless person off of the street who has no ambition, who has no drive, who has what like is just not even mentally functioning and dating him. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that I think there needs to be a little bit more humility, and I think there needs to be a little bit more reality in what to expect in a relationship and what you actually need. I think it's a lot more important for people to have shared values when it comes to relationship, to actually have a solid understanding of what it means to make things work. A relationship isn't always just about me, myself, and I. It's not just about, okay, you fulfilling my needs every single day, all the time. There's an aspect of a relationship that actually requires sacrifice, and it actually requires a person being selfless. But because we do live in a society that is incredibly narcissistic, people think it's all about them. And I think that is one of the biggest problems that I personally see when it comes to people coaching women on how to find love, is saying, oh, he needs to do this, he needs to do that, he needs to make this amount of money, he needs to have this career, he needs to have this kind of car, he needs to have this kind of place, he needs to be at least, 6 packs, six figures, six whatever. Like he needs to be all of this, and there's little to no expectation on what the woman is actually going to do. Um, and it's off balance. It's not real. It's just not realistic. And so I think, I know I'm kind of going on a tangent, but to answer your question, grow for broke, it is unhealthy for a woman to go on social media, follow the hashtag relationship, see people taking selfies, and be like, wow, they're happy. Therefore, I need to have a relationship where I'm happy all the time. Because if you actually talk to a person who's been married for over 20 years, you know what I mean, or anyone who's been in a relationship for a very long time, they're going to tell you that they had ups and downs, they had highs and they have lows. And I actually think this is one of many reasons, it's important to be in relationship with your elders. It's important to have people in your life, grandmothers or aunts, like, or people in your life who are living a level of success that you hope to attain one day, right? Like I said, if you're a woman that wants to be married, you're a woman that desires to have a happy long-term marital relationship, you probably should have people in your life. You probably should have women in your life who have been married for a few decades, happily married for a few decades. You should be in a relationship with them. You should glean from them. You should talk to them. You know what I mean? Um, if you're a man who wants to be successful in business, it's the same thing. It's like you probably should have different people you look up to who have maybe ran a few businesses, had a few failures, had a few successes, and can help guide you. But so often, what happens is that we have people on social media who look cute, who are our age, but who have zero experience, who have zero understanding about relationship. Those are the ones who are giving relationship advice. Those are the ones that sometimes have hundreds of thousands, even millions of followers, and they're no older than 30. And not to say, I'm not saying just because a person is young or whatever they can't give advice. Like I said, I talk about relationships, but there's certain things where it's just like, look, I have been married for 40 years, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know the answer. I'm going to bring on somebody who has been on for 40 years and have them talk and have them share. And so I think um yeah, when it comes to having healthy expectations or standards for what does it look like to have an intimate relationship, I think instead of going to peers or just looking at social media and looking at hashtags and coming to your own conclusions, you should actually talk to somebody who it's better to talk to somebody who is actually in that thing. Talk to the person, maybe talk to a married couple or whoever who's actually living that lifestyle. And then it's better to get the reality from them, not to get the reality from what you see on the screen or what you see on the phone. Because like I said, that is a false reality. And there are literally people out there, there are Instagram couples who have made a money, who have made an industry out of looking cute and out of appearing like they're a happy couple, and in reality they're not together at all. In reality they're just actors. Like, I mean, there's been a few that have come out. So like I said, don't be fooled on social media. That's what I say. Your phone shouldn't be your life. Your computer screen shouldn't be your life. Your iPad, your mobile device, whatever, it shouldn't be your life. Your life should be your life. So now you said ask the elders, they are all single. How single now. Yeah, it looks like you need to get around some new elders. There are, like I said, there are people out there. Um, there are people out there. Sometimes they are. It seems like they're far and few between. But it's like if you can't find them, then keep on looking until you find somebody. Um, yeah, but that's what I would say. So, um, again, thank you for those of you who have popped on. Thank you for those of you who are comment. I appreciate your super chat. I also appreciate the Cash App. If you want to hear more content like this, more ideas like this, you can find me on Cash App and Venmo. I'm going to need your support long term in order to keep this up. So just to wrap this up, I would say for women, guard against comparing yourself to that what you see on a screen, to that what you see on the mobile device, what you see on television, what you see in media, what you see in your favorite romantic comedies or movies, because it's not real, because it's selling a false narrative, and because if you compare yourself to whatever is fake or fantastical, you're never going to live up. You're never going to be happy. It is going to lead you down a road of discontentment. And like I said, this is a real thing because social media, Facebook and Instagram have literally they've gone through different studies and they have tried to change their platform because they recognize that the news feed and some of the different things that are happening on the news feed we're making people depressed. We're making women feel depressed because they were going on and seeing all the great, great, great things that are happening around them, but not to them. And so literally they had to, both Facebook and Instagram, particular time, had to try to make changes to the platform so they could guard against causing depression and hoping that their users could have a better mental experience. But I say that to say that it is tempting, especially for us women, it is tempting for us to go online and to see cute pictures or photos or videos and say, oh, wow, this is so cute. Like my life should be like that. But I'm here to say that no, it shouldn't. Your life shouldn't look like anybody else. You don't need to look like anybody else. You don't need to be a 10. Not all women are 10s, and that's okay. Like I said, not all women are meant to be on the cover of a magazine. Not all women are meant to be going down nobody's runway. Not all women are meant to be a superstar or to have a huge singing career, whatever it may be. Not all women are meant to be that, and that is totally and completely okay and fine. And I think we are a lot better off. We were a lot happier when we are content with the way God made us and we are living out, we are simply living out our purpose. We are simply doing what it is that we are actually created to do and can do well. And we're not trying to be what we're not. We are not happy when we're not trying to be what we're not. We're not happy when we're hating ourselves. We're not happy if we are hating our hair, if we're hating the color of our skin, if we're hating being Black or African American, we're not happy, if we're wishing we were another ethnicity or other race, if we're hating the men in our community, we're not happy, if we're wishing, oh, we had that body or that thing without willing to put the work in to actually get it. We're not happy. And seeing that, and that's another thing. I think sometimes there are sometimes where it's just like, okay, if you want something, go for it. If you're looking at that person's body and you're like, man, I really want her abs, then I mean, it's like, yeah, you could go on a diet and try to achieve it. But sometimes it's like we can want something or we could even lust or envy something without wanting to actually put the work in necessary to get it. And like I said, that's another thing behind social media that can be a little bit limiting is we see the final result, we see the end result, but we don't always see the process. And so there are certain things that you can go for and get, but if you're not willing to put in the work, then that's okay. That's okay. But then it's like, be content with what you have. Be content with the amount of work you're willing to put into something. But don't also compare yourself with something that you're not willing to go for. Because that also, like I said, will lead you to being discontent. um, so anyways, like I said, it may sound silly, but in a culture where us women are told you have to be this, or you everyone has to feel like they are the most beautiful, sexiest thing in the world, or else they don't feel like they're valuable. And I mean, this is the premise of why Kevin Samuel's show is so popular, because he continuously talks to women who basically say, "I am a 10," and he's like, "No, you're not a 10." And you actually would probably have better results if you just were actually realistic about where you're at in the sexual marketplace, right? And when I say 10, when I'm ranking, I'm talking about specifically like in the dating market. I'm not saying your person's value. I think that's completely separate. But as far as, yeah, your value in the dating marketplace or where you rank, however you want to put it, um, he's saying like, yeah, no, actually, if you just had a more accurate estimation of what you bring to the table, then you probably would have a happier, better result, and you'd probably be more content. And so that's what I'm saying. We're actually more content when we recognize what we do well, who we are, our gifts, our weaknesses, and we work within that. I think we're a lot happier with that versus wishing that we were something that will never be, trying to attain or be something that it's never going to happen. Um, that just leads to a lot of unhappiness. And again, the reason I wanted to bring this up is I don't really see a lot of topics around this, which is fine, but I do know it happens. I do know it exists. Again, major social media platforms would not have put reports out there talking about, depression among different users if it wasn't real that people weren't comparing themselves. It does happen. It is a real thing. So that's what I would say, for myself. One of the ways I've been able to guard against it has just been to find a solid sense of my identity in God and work that out and know, like, okay, this is what I do well. This is what I do best. And by the way, I'm actually happiest when I'm doing what I was created to be versus me trying to fit into a mold or do what I wasn't created to be. I'm actually happier when I'm when I know my limitations, I accept those limitations, and then I focus on what I do well. I'm actually a lot happier. I'll use this as an example. I can remember back when I was in corporate, and there's kind of part of me that had this pressure to feel like, okay, for some time I felt like, okay, well, maybe I have to be the big corporate person, or maybe I have to do this. And I was working in corporate and I was doing different things, and I started to really feel unhappy. Like I was grateful for opportunities, and I was, grateful for some of the things that I learned and for the money, but like internally I was just like, man, like I feel like I followed somewhat of what I should have done. You know what I mean? I graduated with really high grades. I got into a really, really um, highly accredited school, one of the best schools out there. And then from there, I went straight into the workforce, and I just worked and I just worked. And I kind of felt like, okay, I did what I was supposed to do, but I don't necessarily feel like I feel like, okay, there's something missing. I could do different, more, you know what I mean? Like, I just something just didn't really set right. And so, fast forward to going into a different series of events, and I started to recognize it's like, wow, many of us women have been told, especially in the modern era, where it's like, yeah, you need to do this thing, you need to secure the bag, which basically means for most of us getting into a corporate job, because most women, that's what we do, unless we're like doing retail or something like that. Just like the way we're going to make the most amount of money is getting into a corporate job, doing some form of middle management. And so many of us have kind of heard that push. It's like, okay, go get this high powered career in this corporate space, as if that's going to make you happy, content, and if that's also going to make you financially successful. And when I was in there, I'm working in there, and I'm seeing not only the limitations that exist in corporate, but also just some of the different challenges as far as getting ahead. Yeah, they'll give you good money, but it's certainly not enough money that you need and actually be able to sustain yourself. And there's all these different things, and I'm just like, man, like what I was told versus what I'm living just does not add up. And so, I say that to say that sometimes we hear things, sometimes we can hear narratives, meta narratives. Um, we can People can tell us, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that, or oh, you got to look like that, or whatever, and we try to do it, and it doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit us. And that's why I'm saying I think it's really important for a person at the end of the day to just have a strong sense of who God created them to be, to seek out that purpose and to live that out, because that is the only way you're going to be the most content and probably the most successful. And this is the one of the reasons, I decided to start this channel. I was like, okay, I did that for this amount of time, but I think there's more. I think there's some more things that need to be talked about, some more things that need to be addressed. And although I've been told that, corporate and finding the high power job and securing the bag, that's the way that I'm going to be happy as a woman. I did that for some time and found that no, it's not. That's actually really not the way. Actually, that's the way for you to waste a lot of, put in a lot of hours and get very little input in. It's the way for you to waste time. I mean, and that's to say, I know there's some people in corporate who do it well and it's worked for them. But just for me, like I said, for me long term, I was like, that was not it. So, Percy, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you for sending that in. Let me see. Yeah, I hate while Kevin Samuels compared regular woman to Beyonce, she has a whole team to make her look flawless. I love the everyday regular woman. Bingo. That, and you actually make an incredibly good point. If you get paid to look good, like again, if you are a singer, an actress, a movie star, a model, if you are paid for how you look, yeah, you need to be 8, 9, to 10. That is a part of your job. That is a part of you. You got to have a hairstylist that makes your hair look some point. Your makeup needs to be flawless. Your skin needs to be flawless. Your body needs to be flawless. You have a personal trainer. You probably have a cook. You have a nutritionist. You have a personal hairstylist. You have somebody who does your hair. You have a makeup artist that comes and does. You have a photographer that makes sure all your pictures probably come out. Like, you have an entire team dedicated to your image. So it is also incredibly unrealistic for an average everyday person, or a regular woman who's living a very meaningful average life, to compare herself to somebody who their entire money is dependent upon how they look. You're never going to compare, and you shouldn't. And so, again, that is a great point. Like I said, same thing with Instagram models. I mean, we know a lot of them get work. A lot of them do different things to make them look a certain way. But again, it's like their money is dependent upon the way they look. If your money is not dependent upon the way you look, then there shouldn't be a need for you to have to compare to them, because that's just not that's just not who you are. That's just not your job. That's not, and that's okay. And I'm sure many of you guys heard, that video. I think it was the woman who was talking about, I don't have pretty privilege and it sucks. And my perspective on it, I could appreciate her sharing her experience and her basically being honest and being like, hey, there, whether or not people want to talk about it, there is such a thing as a rating. There are certain women who get more attention, certain women who get less attention based upon the way they look. It just is what it is. I can appreciate her being honest about that because I'm thinking, okay, look, the more we can start to have honest conversations, then the more we can actually be realistic about where it is we are in life and making that work for us. Not trying to, like I said, not trying to be what you're not, or not trying to go for something that's either completely out of your league or just isn't meant for you. Those are my thoughts. Um, okay, so Johnny K, I see he has to compare to Beyonce because the majority of people know who she is. It is a benchmark of which one can relate. If I talk about fast cars, you don't think Mini Cooper. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Of course, I think my take on it, and thank you, Johnny K, for the super chat. I appreciate it. And for those of you who just hopped on, um, please tag anybody on who you think may find this interesting. Share it. Again, we've been talking about comparison, and some of the many reasons I think it is incredibly damaging for women to compare themselves, especially when they compare themselves to things that they just will never be. Um, so yeah, I think one of the reasons he does that, to his point, is like, yeah, everybody knows Beyonce. Of course, he uses supermodels or he uses celebrities because everybody knows how they look. So that he just kind of has to do that in order to kind of set a standard. With that said, I think another reason he is doing that is because he's trying to give somewhat of a benchmark, to actually have an honest conversation, to have a real conversation, and to say, okay, ladies, for all of you who are coming in here with all these inflated ideas of the kind of Prince Charming that you think you deserve, are you on Prince Charming's level? You know what I mean? So I think he's using it as a way of just trying to say, okay, let's, in the spirit of all things equal, okay, women, if you're expecting all these things, what are you bringing to the table? And I know I know some people hate that. I know some people hate hearing somebody tell a woman, what are you bringing to the table? But I think I think it is very unhealthy for anybody to get in a relationship and the expectation be that one person is just doing everything all the time and it's just like always a sacrificial lamb, and then the other person is always on the receiving end. I don't think any relationship would last like that long term. And so I can appreciate him being like, okay, so okay, this is what you want, this is what you desire. There's nothing wrong with that. What are you actually willing to give in return? And like I said, the fact that we actually need to have these conversations is it's proof that there's a lot of disconnect. But yeah. So and to your point, yeah, if you think prefer to sense short size well. Yeah, no, I see this comment about models. On a total side note, I've always said, like, as far as the body, I don't know if you're referring to the body positive movie, but assuming you were referring to the body positive movement, I am a full supporter of there being plus sized male models. I never see that. I wish there was plus size male models. I wish there was short male models. Both. I wish there were short and plus size male models. I don't ever see that. I do struggle with the fact that body positive is very, very female or gynocentric. I think the word is. It's from what I've seen, it's all about females, and I do understand, like, the whole idea is like it's generally females are the ones that, I guess, as far as in modeling, whatever, have been betrayed a certain way. So like I guess I kind of get the idea. I kind of get the idea of why it's been focused on females, because generally we are judged more by how we look. But I think in the spirit of all things equal, if we want things to be 50-50 split square, then I'm like, why don't I see short models, male models? Why don't I see short overweight models? Why don't I see overweight male models, really, period, on the runway? I would like to see that. I would really like to see all of that. I want to see all of the diversity of the human body, male and female, in order for things to be equal. That is just my 2 cents. I go on a little bit of a tangent. But anyways, yeah. So that's really what I would have to say for comparison. Women, guard against it. Please guard against it. The only way, in my opinion, that I believe you can guard against it is to have a strong sense of your God identity. Have a strong sense of who you are in God, who God created you to be. I talk to my Christian women and say, okay, who was your identity in Christ? That's specifically what I mean. Because if you don't know who you created to be, if you don't have a strong sense of self, then you can literally spend your entire life trying to pursue, comparing yourself to something that you'll never be. And unlike what many of us have been told, where some of us say, hey, you can be whatever you want to be or do whatever you want to do. And yeah, I mean, you can do whatever you want to do within theory. But I think the reality is some of us just have limitations. It just is what it is. And that doesn't mean that it is a bad thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. Knowing your limitations, knowing your strengths and your weaknesses doesn't have to be a bad thing. Actually, it can work in your favor if you embrace it. But if we are told, hey, all women, you're all supposed to be tens. Hey, all women, all of you deserve to live this top notch, luxurious life and to be in the top 1%, as if women can even hold that pressure. All these women who are, who are talking about hypergamy leveling up, as if you can even make, know the amount of pressure that comes with being with a high profile man or living in a high profile lifestyle. As if you even know what that means. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. It's like when you push this fantasy, it leads to a lot of unhappiness and a lot of unrealistic expectations. So you said you two nice short size models. No, I was, I was saying in the spirit of all things equal, I think if we're really trying to push, if the whole idea of body positive is embracing different shapes and sizes, I would like to see a full figured woman next to a shorter man, because I think if we're comparing genders, full figured women are the most to be looked down upon, and short men are the most to be looked down upon. So I would like to see them paired. I want to see like the bottom of the bottom, if you will, elevated so that all things are equal. That's just my that's just my take on it. And again, that's my take on it. If we are really trying to push equality, if we are now, if people are just trying to push an agenda, that's a whole other conversation. So anyways, again, I think those of you who have been on, who have been so generous to take time and to listen, thank you. Those of you who have given in this super chat, again, just to wrap it up, I would say, women, don't fall into the trap of comparison. Do not do it. It is going to lead you down a path of being unhappy. You're a lot better off just recognizing actually who you are, who God created you to be, and using that to your advantage. um like I said, it's okay if you don't measure up with what you see on the screen, because most of the time, what you see in the screen, if not all the time, it is a false reality. It is a false narrative. It's not going to make you happy anyway. Some of the people we compare our life to aren't even happy themselves. They're on antidepressants. They have bipolar disorder. They have messed up relationships. They have drug issues. They have alcohol issues. So some of the very people that we compare our lives with aren't even happy themselves. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we just got to get off the phone. You know what I mean? Just recognize um, recognize that something is fake when we see it as fake, and really find contentment in loving who we are, loving in who God created us to be, and embracing that. Because, like I said, when we actually embrace who we are, embrace who God created us to be, that's when we're the most content, and that's actually when we are the most successful. Believe it or not, we're the most successful when we are in our purpose. We were living our purpose. We were living out our purpose, not trying to be anything else, but recognizing that there's only one of us, and we are the only ones that will ever have the opportunity to share or express the unique attribute of God that we have innate. So those are my thoughts that on the matter. I want to appreciate all of you guys who have hopped on, who have tagged, who have sent in their super chats, who have shared, sent in your ideas. I'll obviously be hopping on a little later on, but I thank all of you guys. I appreciate you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to leave it in the comment section below, and we will talk later. All right, bye bye.